Welcome to the No BS podcast, an unfiltered look into the global hospitality and short-term rental industry with a focus on founder stories, current events, and culture.
I'm Mateo Bradford Vasquez.
And I'm John Stokinger.
And this is our podcast. We bring the right people to the table at the right time, giving you an inside take on the hospitality industry like no other podcast can.
We appreciate your support. So let's make this official. Make sure to like, follow, and leave a review for the No BS Pod on your favorite podcast listening platforms.
And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel as well. While you're there, please like, listen, and subscribe. And oh yeah, make sure to hit the notification button to stay up to date on all of the exciting things that No BS Productions has coming up.
Good morning, Mateo. How are you?
Morning, brother. I am doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm good. I'm getting ready for, you know what I've been doing. I have calluses
behind you and see.
Man, I have calluses on calluses. I've been doing this for so long. I can't wait to finally get over here into this new house.
People know how crafty you are, first of all, and crafty and not like you're sitting at home knitting sweaters, but you're like the kind of man's man. Like you, dude, you're not. I wish people could see like our text threads the past 2 months. Of like you in a crawl space with a pipe that's half cut off, you doing flooring, you're like, dude, like if we ever get into no BS contracting, it's going to be a real thing.
I can hold my own.
You doing all of the work.
I'm a jack of all, master of none. I can dabble with pretty much anything, but I'm not a finished carpenter. I don't fuck with automobiles. I know that's not my thing. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. This is a great episode today. I've been chatting with this gentleman that we have for about a month now. Back and forth, we get a new exciting partnership that we're going to be doing with Direct. We have a mutual clients or prospects on his clients, prospects on my end coming up. And it's got a super, super interesting background. So without further ado, Mr. Brian Butler, bright and early.
Welcome to
guys. The Northwest.
Yeah.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good.
Good. Glad to have you on.
Brian and I, we were talking before the show, got the Portland connection going. We both have a background in logistics. I saw a little bit.
Yep.
So, we have a lot to talk about. So let's welcome to the show. Let's dig in.
All right. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate this. So I'm 2 coffees in, so I'm ready to go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's good. Talk to us about we know where you are today. You're with EZcare. We're going to dive in, and that's the partnership that we have that we're working on with Direct.
Right.
And that's what you've been working on for the past few years now, for sure. But we've actually had conversations. We have a lot of similarities in our background, in our past, which is, we don't have to get into all of those. We probably won't get into all of those. But looking at your history and talking about actually, just a couple minutes ago, you're talking about you got started in the printing world in Southern Cali, and you were doing that, and you transitioned to hospitality when print died. Tell us about that transition.
Yeah, thank you. I lived in San Francisco with my family and worked for a very large printing organization, Color Graphics, and we were out of LA, primarily San Francisco and Seattle. So Orange County as well. We had another little operation down there. But yeah, I spent 17 years in the printing industry, printing everything from back when Sun Micro or Oracle had not bought Sun Microsystems, their annual reports, the Microsoft annual report. I worked with Apple for 12 years in the early days. Early compared to now, not so early. And I was given one of the first bits of technology as they rolled out, which is great. The iPods, the original silverback engraved that were back then, and worked with Adobe systems when they were about 38 people. Yeah, no kidding. They were in one building, stuffed 32 people on top of each other. So I got to put my finger on the pulse of a lot of Silicon Valley when it came to printing.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that Google was Google. I didn't understand that Adobe was going to be that big.
Right.
Apple at the time, Steve Jobs, for a long time was at Next. He had been basically cast out of Apple. The stock was at $12 or something. It was crazy.
Right. I remember
they were going under. So it's not like you could say, I'm going to dump all my money in And these guys, because I was a bee that floated from flower to flower in the Silicon Valley. So, but how are you going to know that? You're in the moment. You have no idea whether they're going to survive or not.
Right.
I do look back fondly, though, because I get to have stories like this. You look back and you say, God, I had no idea who I knew, and just by or where I was standing at the moment was in their infancy. You just
It's
don't
like
know that.
circumstantial proximity. And
Yeah, by proxy, I was just, yeah, exactly. I just tangential to the gravity that was happening. But that was fun. That was a great industry. Enjoyed the heck out of it. But it's ironic that I watched Adobe create technologies that pretty much wiped out the graphic arts industry as I knew it, and then ultimately took a big bite out of the printing industry. And we saw that coming, and the demise of what I'm going to call big box printers. These are very large projects. Was lucky enough to work with Adobe and Apple for that many years, but saw the writing on the wall. Ended up transitioning to Navis. So it was a hard transition because you guys probably know this, but it's very difficult to have a resume in one industry and try to broach another industry at a level that makes sense. Right?
Yeah.
we've both done it.
Yeah,
And
we've definitely done that. Yeah.
Yeah. It takes a lot of leap of faith on the employer's part. And that's what I got. So Navis, Cal Buhner and their family took a chance, and I was exceptionally lucky. I look back and say, wow, that was a leap for them to take, but it turned out fantastic. I found another industry that's people-oriented, right?
Yeah.
It's a people business.
right.
And that was exciting. And I cut my teeth in supplying telephony marketing for vacation rental companies, ultimately branching out into non-flagged hotels. And I cut my teeth in the vacation rental industry 10, 12 years ago. Oh, that was nice.
So you were at Navis. Obviously, we have lots of mutual connections from that world, and a lot of that world actually went over to the track side of things. Colin, I think, is still there. There's some Jeff. We didn't really talked about Jeff at all in our past. Jeff was there, and now he's down in the Caribbean someplace.
Yeah, Jeff Robinson and I worked together, Michelle Marquis, Colin. There was quite a bit of overlap. There's some that are still in the industry that I see at trade shows. Bryce Carpenter and myself. Bryce is at Housefully. You get an opportunity, and this is true of here and where I went to after that at Vacasa, where it's really great because our industry is incestuous in this, and we all once you jump lily pads, then it's a spider web, or I'm mixing my visuals, but it's sort of a spider.
We get it. We see where you're going.
Yeah, and it's fun. You go to the trade shows, and there's people on the software side, there's people on the VR side, the attendee side, and the PM side. You get it's like old home week out on the circuit.
You came in at a time too when software was really having a monumental kind of impact on the industry and the business, right? Where there was a sophistication in terms of operations, in software really becoming a key business component, right? Like something you couldn't live without anymore. And talking about being at its infancy and where it's evolved even over the past 10 years, both of you and all of us has watched this progress at this exponentially fast rate. What drew you? Like, not what drew you, what kept you? Because it wasn't an easy landscape, right? It was completely challenging at that time.
It was fascinating because I had seen the rise, at least in my time, and then demise, and printing's still around. It took a huge hit, but I was able to have some perspective, a little bit of perspective, to know that technology in the vacation rental industry was not exactly comparable to other industries. So it was interesting for me to see the play there. It was interesting to take the ride at Navis. But to me, Navis was great on a number of levels, but primarily it was a vocabulary. When you switch industries, in my opinion, understanding the vocabulary is one of the key elements, and nesting yourself within that industry. So it gave me the dictionary of the terminology.
Right. All the dang acronyms.
All the acronyms. Just short of the military, it's
exactly.
But that was great. And the second thing, Matteo, is the people. It was unbelievably fun to work with. And people say that all the time, and I don't want to bore you, but when you get a welcoming community, which is not ironic, we're in the hospitality business, but to get a welcoming community, people community within a technology play, then that's a pretty special spot.
No, I couldn't agree
So,
more. I think that's what makes our industry
very unique.
real unique. Yeah, 100% is just the congeniality of the people here
Yep.
and lived hospitality, right? Like outside
Sure.
of workspace. So very
You went from Navis, you then went to Vacasa, and you were there for close to 4 years. And ending up at the end, I think this, and tell me if I'm wrong, after you were there for the turnkey acquisition, and you right at that last year or so, you were the GM of turnkey, correct?
No, I'll back up a little bit
Okay.
because it is intertwined. And not the timeline's that important, but somewhere around 2013, 2014, Cliff Johnson, the co-founder, reached out and said, "Hey, let's have an interview." I think they were over in Bend, Oregon, where Navis was. And somehow I got in touch with them or they got in touch with me. I can't quite remember, but I ended up with Eric Brian, the founder's brother, Scott, and the co-founder at Cliff Johnson at a lunch. And what started out as a 30-minute interview, as many have, it turned into 2 hours.
Yep.
And immediately it became clear to me that this is somebody I wanted to work for. It wasn't even Vacasa, it was Cliff Johnson. And I'll be brutally honest and say at the time I didn't know much about Vacasa other than they were on the other side of the fence,
Right.
the cash rental side of the fence. And it just blossomed from there. I got to meet great people. They gave me a funny title because we were so small, but, vice president of sales, regional vice president of sales, but that's saying I'm CEO of a 2-person company. They had started in 2009. It was 2013, 14. So they were 400 units or 600 units. So they were still a good sized company when I joined them, but we were self-funded, right? Still, we were running on our own P&L.
Yeah.
And we were again, super unique, super great perspective. We were a little band of people just trying to change the industry and we had no idea what we were doing. And I literally want to emphasize we had no idea what we were doing.
Yeah.
And so ultimately ended up as a regional director of operations for the West Coast, which was fun. Yeah. Again, a lot of titles or a lot of grunt work. It sounds lofty, but we were just trying to do the best we could. And I got lucky. I was in Oregon already. So Portland as its home base worked out well and moved over to Portland. And I've been here a long time. So it was great. Just to give you a transition, I moved out of Vacasa when we took our first 65 million. I think it was 4 million, something like that, from an equity firm out of New York. Everything changed at that point. And I don't mean negative or positive. I have no real feeling for that. I just know that it wasn't where I wanted to be. And we had a bit of a tough parting, but
but a lot of people knew that at that time, that's where they not wanted to be, right? Like Mateo's really close to the cliff.
Yeah. Close
of course, they rented, of course.
Yep. Yeah. He's one of my good friends.
So. And we know that crew pretty well.
Well, if you know that crew, then you know Cliff Johnson, then you know why you want to work for somebody.
100%.
I still say he's the nicest man I think I've ever met. Present company excluded. But honestly,
that's a compliment.
For
Cliff's
sure.
salt
I'm kind of a dick
for me. Yeah, John is definitely a dick. I'm in the middle, but
well, you guys
one of those people that a friendship with him 100% makes you a better person. Just period.
Yep, no doubt. And it was an easy decision to make for me. I think in hindsight, again, perspective's everything. It gave me a perspective on where the industry was. I know where it is now. And if you don't have a baseline, then you don't know how far you've fallen or how far you've climbed. And for me, understanding that, and Vacasa was doing some amazing things at the time. And I have to credit that crew for doing it, but we were doing rate management back when Eric and Cliff were hiring PhDs and math to come in and start working on algorithmic solutions. Yep. Rate management was built from within. And for its time in 2015 was incredibly sophisticated.
Actually, I think we know one of the hires that you hired back then for the rate
Exactly.
From the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. Go.
Might be doing some machine learning.
It was great. It was amazing. And again, what we didn't know is some of the tools that we were developing. And I say I didn't, but I was out in the front line trying to do other things and keep my housekeepers working and keep my homeowners happy. But behind the scenes, there was a lot of stuff going on at extremely high level that now I look back and I see individual businesses thriving that were in aggregate, basically the operations or administratively operations effectively or ostensibly the operations side of Vacasa. Amazing the strides we took in optimization there. And Vacasa knew HomeAways back in HomeAways days, HAPN. They knew that algorithm almost as well as the developers at HomeAways. So there was a lot of predictive stuff that Vacasa could anticipate in order to get page ranks. And I don't know if you remember, but it was a pay-to-play system back then where platinum, silver, gold, whatever it was, and you had to pay to get a higher ranking. Understanding that changed over time because HomeAway didn't quite understand what it was doing with Verbo or VRBO, and it was still consolidating, and it was trying to figure out its price levels. And it was also, as we know, trying to figure out how you take care of the property managers and the individuals. And
they're still trying to figure it out.
Exactly. It's a precursor to Airbnb for sure. Without, we all know this, at least in the industry. So there was a lot of skin knees and Band-Aids coming out because they just didn't know what they were doing. But Vacasa was tuned into that. They even made their website look like OTA or competitive, someone in that space, a Verbo site, basically, for booking homes. And I thought that was extremely wise. So it was really unique. I learned a lot. I got to meet, as we say, that spider web. I got to meet so many people, so many great people that have spun out of Vacasa. I think this last Verma International, I think I was standing there. We started counting. I think there were 16 people that were at the show that came around my booth and me, men, that we all knew each other, including Eric. Eric came up and we had a good conversation with Eric Brian. That was good.
No, it's good to see him back and in the fold and what he's doing with his exciting ventures too. But that's this industry, right?
Never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment. It's interesting. And we don't, I think, Mike, I'd love to hear from your perspective, especially being so early. Everyone, like, we're sitting here talking about the nostalgic days. And when we talk about Vacasa so much lately, you know, the peril of their apparent situation now versus where it started. And regardless of what people's opinions on Vacasa is, the fact that they're talking about it, and it's one of the stalwarts in our business that everyone looks to, right, wrong, or indifferent. Their name stays at the forefront because of what they were doing at the time was so innovative, yet so basic. When you look at the culture of the company from the beginning and what they had and how they scaled, and there is an immense amount of just love, right, for what was done during that time, during that building time. The managers were loved by the homeowners, the people and the culture at the company was loved and endeared. But it goes back to this issue, I think, that a lot of companies face, like scaling and how you scale and how you lose something that's so special, so innovative, because the company culture spurred innovation, right? In the innovation, and the company culture was one that really did things that had reverberating effects that I don't even think they were able to see at the time. And so I guess, where does that go? How do you lose that? And do you see any companies, either your own or others at this time, that are doing something similar, that are really pushing the boundaries, pushing the line, that will really benefit the entire industry moving forward, whether it's around AI or whatever? Like, being a part of that, I think you have a unique experience, right? Like,
I think there's a lot of thoughts that go through your head at that point. I think there's always room for an aha moment in any vertical, if you want to call it that, in the hospitality space for short-term rentals and corporate housing and that area of short-term stays. I'm sure there'll be another story like mine coming out of some company that was nascent AI that's now revolutionized the industry, but they didn't know it at the time. The same with Adobe back when I was doing that and didn't know, and back with Vacasa, and I didn't really know. I just happened to be at these places, had significant change in their respective industries. I can tell you that it's an interesting landscape. I think for a while, Vacasa was changing the world a la the way that Apple felt like they were changing the world back in 1980, 1978, something like that. But then it changed. It changed. It wasn't the pathway that could stay static. It had to change. Now, what I find fascinating looking back is somebody like Eric had a long-term goal of he used to say to us, every home, everywhere. Okay, but there's a price to be paid in that people business, hospitality being the name of the business, that is at odds with scale, in my opinion. Right. So now we're fast forward to Vacasa is not always the nicest word to say around a table at Burma or anywhere. it has disrupted a lot of local markets, a lot of mom and pops, we all know this, a lot of what used to be when I was a kid, and we all know this, is a real estate company on the beach that happened to have 30 homes that they manage for their homeowners. It's changed radically since then. I think scaling is the holy grail of people chasing dollars, but I think it's completely at odds with the people business, and that is the vacation rentals.
It's such a fine line, right? It's such a fine line, like where, like that.
Very few have been able to.
Yeah, and you see it in technology companies, you see it in everything. Like, we need more money to scale, to grow, to develop these different things. And what does that mean? Ultimately, you see a culture change, you see a product change, which could be for the better, could be for the worse. But it's
the focus changes.
Yeah, and it needs to. And we talk about this a lot, was what is your definition of success? And is success being, we talk a lot on the property manager side. I want to scale to 50 units and just be happy at 50 units. And I could be very successful at 50 units, or maybe I'm someone else. And like, my definition of success is 500 or 5,000 units. And so to every person, to every company, that's a different definition. But when you're going down that path, your trajectory in your journey, you think you want to get there, and that's your definition of success. And you think when you get to 50 units or 500 units or 5,000 units, that you're going to be able to keep going, doing the same thing. And you can't. It's going to be different. And
but I think is it a timing thing though? Like, I feel like there's just such a rush associated with scaling that people think that they have, for whatever reason, some finite period of time to get to some certain space or else, right? Versus, what is your real end goal in end game, right? Like, scaling, everyone's for progress, everyone's for growth, right? But what is, number one, like, how much growth and at what cost and at what time, right? Because we see these companies that are in these almost blind spot rushes to just grow. And they'll tell you what they think their end state is. But even through that growth process, you'll see them pivot 3, 4, 5 times.
Right.
And not really taking assessment as to what they're losing in real time, or what they're giving up in real time, or what they're sacrificing in real time. And so even when they get to that point, in which has been the goal, is it worth what you've lost? Is it worth what you gave up? Should you have taken your time and maybe gotten there a little bit later, but gotten there with a more solid foundation, better product, better culture, better solid company? I don't know. That's my question. And I think to people like you, Ryan, you've lived it, right? And so you have the gift of hindsight to look back and say, hey, look, going through these things, I wish we would have done X, Y, and Z just a little bit differently, because we could have held on to what made us special and could have made getting to this end game at the right time the right move.
I think it was the most, maybe Resort Quest had it prior to Vacasa, but it was the most money invested in a vacation rental company to date. And it was by far, I think, and I may be wrong for all those people listening to the podcast who may know better financially, but our first placement was 65 million-ish. We had a bridge loan for 10 million to make payroll. And so we were at a precarious situation. And because we scaled at breakneck speed, like you guys just talked about, we just went for the brass ring, not really understanding the finances, because that was not always shown. It was shown to me, but not always where we were going, or the naivety of me understanding the long play here. But it changed the culture. But ironically, it changed the culture. Maybe irony is the wrong word. What it allowed us to do is then take an exponential leap. We're flush with cash. We could make moves, most of it in acquisitions. And that's also playing out today, right? Is acquisitions, market consolidation. I think there's something happening now with the low barrier to entry, where there's the old guard trying to grow the way they've always grown. Okay, they lose 2, but they gain 5, but then they lose 1, and then they gain 6, and they're just moving along. Then there's what I'm going to call the funded gang, and then there's the hobbyist, right? And the hobbyist is taking, in my opinion, the greatest. It's now I'm going to start a vacation rental business because I'm hearing in the zeitgeist of the world that you can make money at this.
Right.
So there's a lot of these players that have come into the market.
Oh.
what used to be a barrier to that is you got to do it all yourself. Now technology plays, you can come in and literally plug and play and really gain against a funded property management company because all of these parts and pieces are at a la carte. And so you guys all know this, John, and with direct, we all know that the technology stack can give you don't have technical debt. So all of a sudden you're at a very sophisticated level, just bolting on a few things or just going
And
direct.
with VAs and co-hosting and all these different pieces to the hobbyist side of things, it makes it great point with the barrier to entry just being like so like anyone could do it, and which we've talked about a lot is pros and cons to that. But I want to make sure that it was a decent transition. Now we've gone a little past, but I want to go talk about EZcare.
Yeah.
You're talking about doing things a little different. Than you and I have talked in the past how direct and EZcare are comparable in how we've built our businesses and how we're coming in and looking at the space and how we're not running. We're taking our time and making calculated decisions and building out the product. Talk to us about EZcare. Talk to us about your role. I know you are a vertical of a different company. So if you can tell us a little bit about that and what you're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting that I think we were in San Diego at Verma, and I sat in this is years and years ago, and my now chief competitor was just starting out, and they were talking about operations being the next area to tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And I agreed wholeheartedly. And then at Vacasa, and this isn't pejorative, I just didn't have the tools. I had to pick up the phone or drive to the communities that I was supposed to be managing. And so I was on the road a lot, just talking with the local groups and hearing all the pros and cons. So it was a different time. And so when I had the opportunity to work with Yan, the owner of EZcare, then his idea was, hey, maybe I've got software over here that could work for the VR industry. And that's when I came in 2017, 18 and said, I want to build the tools that I didn't have when I was at prior companies. I would have loved to have these kinds of scheduling tools and tracking tools and verticals for inventory and inventory management. And so I've tried over the last, 5-6 years to build a product that I could have used. That's it. There was no other magic to it. I would have loved to have this. Or we now hear prospects say, gee, wouldn't it be great if you had that? And that would make my life easier if you did this. We siloed and continue to focus directly on operations, how operations managers come in during the day, what they have to triage from the prior days, what they have to focus on and prioritize today, and then how they have to predict the next 3 to 7 days. Right. And so we stay in that silo. Okay, we've got some, call it limitations, if you will, being privately held. We don't, speaking of investment money, we don't have it, but then there's the pro to that. We get to do what we want. We get to move in the direction we want. We are untethered by John Q. Bank telling us that we need a multiple to pay them back. But it's a blessing and a curse. You're not going to see a huge footprint at Verma from us, but you are going to see software that
until you do. That's where we're at. Until you do. And where's that inflection point? Where is it? Like, holy shit! Like this product's amazing.
Isn't that part of being smart? Purpose of what we were just talking about, right? In terms of scaling appropriately, in putting resources to appropriate places, right? And looking to growth, like bigger. We've all seen in this space in terms of, Ryan, our short time in being in this space versus yours, but you've probably seen it at a wider clip. All money's not good money. More money's not always good money. It's the use of that money. It is the deliberate intent of building partnerships, of putting that money in a way that is actually going to sow the seeds that is going to bring the right type of success, the right type of scale. And so if you're out there doing your boots on the ground, building technology that really matters, right? The kind that the industry is going to accept, that property managers are going to use, right? Then it doesn't matter if you have the biggest booth at Verma, and no disrespect to Verma or any other conference out there, right? Like at the end of the day, what matters is, are people buying in? Are they continuing to buy in and be sticky, right? And stay in and find value in what you're bringing to the market. And that's not always with the bigger spend.
I've seen I'm sorry, you're about to say something. Right.
Oh, no, Mateo's right on. I actually get a big, I don't know, boost when I'm on a demo with somebody and they say, oh my God, I had no idea this existed. Who are you guys?
Right. Yeah. Right.
I barely found you. And I'm like, I'm kicking myself going, I wish I had $500,000 to spend on marketing. But the flip side of that is once they see us and they had no idea, then the epiphany of what we can do is joyous to me too. And then I just say, tell your friends. It's organic growth. We have to do guerrilla marketing and organic growth, but there's a certain beauty to that. Mateo, I agree with you 100%. There's just we're back to how vacation rental, we talked about PMs. Is there a growth, rapid growth, or is there sustained sort of building blocks to build a castle? I don't know which is right. I know we're throwing down that castle one brick at a time.
Yeah. There's some differentiators I noticed from you, and there's lots of different products out there. So all of you that are listening, we know the competitors out there. It's more than one hand counting now of the property care type of products out there. And if you, even just a handful of years ago, it was 2 or 3. Yeah. But where you differentiate is you come from an enterprise company. You worked with enterprise operations.
Yes.
So you have firsthand knowledge of what is necessary. And your competitors have some of that as well. We're not going to, when they're working with enterprise clients, but there's a little bit of difference what I've noticed, because I got a demo of EZcare, and I was impressed with some of the laundry aspect and the inventory management side of things. And I know even some PMSs have the ability to go ahead and create laundry tickets and do some different things. But some of the inventory management stuff in real time that you're doing, I think is a game changer. And so I'm excited for you in the direction that you're taking some things, and talking to some of your clients that have been using you. They're like, holy shit, this is really cool. This has been a game changer for us. And can you tell us a little bit some of your differentiators?
Sure, I'd love to. Yeah, and it gets back to, hey, your prospects or clients are on the phone and they say, I've got this other need. Wouldn't it be great if you realize the industry doesn't support it at the level they need? We send back our elves between midnight and start building onto what we have. Yeah, one of the things we found was, what has an ROI? Inventory. Inventory has an immediate ROI.
Yep.
And it's an epiphanal moment, right? Wait a second. If I could collect for every $8 item I have that I haven't been collecting before because of lack of tracking or just non-focus on that, it's found money, right? It's found money. It's money that hits your bottom line, not top line, but bottom line. Because otherwise, and I say it this way, and I had this happen at my old vacation rental, large enterprise level vacation rental company. At the end of the year, I'd look at my part of the world and realize there is an enormous dollar figure staring me in the face of things I couldn't charge for.
Yeah.
Right. Just there's no way to charge a homeowner at that point or a guest for every $8 item that's been consumed. So it was a big number. And where did it come off of? It came off our bottom line. There's no way to replace it at that point. So we looked at inventory and said, wow, this has an immediate ROI, even to the point where it might, and it does now, pay for EZcare. If you implement that inventory management system and have enough found money, it easily pays for our part of it.
Can you give us an example for the listeners what you mean by found money?
Yeah. So for instance, there's let's see if it's good or not, but consumables or just items that you place in the home. And let's just say consumables are a funny thing, shampoos and soaps. There are companies that are drop shipping that in. There are companies they're contracted out with housekeepers to supply that material. But by and large, the industry is still supplying that out of some sort of warehouse or in the home. In a cleaning or owner closet. That's all well and good, but they have no idea of ingress, egress. They have no idea, oh my God, we just ran out of paper towels. Let's run over to Target or wherever they get their stuff, Costco, and buy a jumbo load of it, right? Economically, that's maybe not buying at an economy of scale, a price point. And as your unit count goes up, these numbers matter. And can I get it for $1.50 versus $3? Yeah, it matters because you're buying at scale. So we come in and said, look, if you could do 2 things, if you could track that from ingress from a store all the way through consumption, and then get reports on a per property or per owner basis, and roll that into your property management system at a level that would allow you to, in case of direct, would allow you to have that appear in an owner statement, then what you've done is you've closed the circle between I don't know and I need it to guess who's paying for it, the right.
Yeah, whether you're splitting that cost with the homeowner or the homeowner's paying for it in full, whatever, you have the ability to go ahead and do that. I love it.
I mean, we always had we always had a slush fund, right? We took care of light bulbs and batteries, right?
Oh.
And that came out of rents every month, and whatever our slush fund was back there for every property, $500 or whatever it was, that's fine. But at least you'll know it. You'll know what you've spent against your slush, and you'll know what you're able to bill back to your homeowner or in some cases, your guest. So.
And the homeowners are educated, right? They
Yeah.
want to know exactly. Yeah. They're not just sitting there going, okay, $500 for supplies. They want to know exactly. They want to see line items or,
That's right.
It's a different type of homeowner. They've been with 3, 4, 5 different property managers now.
Yeah.
And to be able to go ahead and offer that and show them, by the way, you're going to have a sophisticated line item. And on top of it, you're going to be restocked.
That's exactly, you just hit on a bit of the key there.
Right.
Is not only will you know what you've consumed, you'll know what you need to restock. I tell it like this: look, your cleaning closet in Grandview Blue or whatever it is, Mountain Memories, whatever home you want to call it, is its own warehouse. So you have to treat it like a warehouse. Yeah. A maintenance person's truck, it's a warehouse. Yeah. Treat it like a warehouse, a true warehouse or an office over your garage or something over your garage. Yeah, exactly.
Something.
It could be a storage area. And we need to know what's coming in. We need to know what's going out. The second part of this too was, how do we do that quickly? We developed a QR code capability for scanning right on the checklist. So you can scan it, whether you're pulling it from a warehouse or a cleaning closet, putting it in the unit or on your truck or from your truck to the property. So this gives them an ability to scan and go as opposed to key something in on I don't know if you guys, but I've got fat fingers, so trying to type in or get a drop-down menu on a phone or an app is a major pain for me.
And it's a time thing too.
Yeah.
To go through different drop-downs, and I just spend 30 seconds as opposed to click.
Yeah. And it's done. And then who they are, where they're at, what they consumed. And now all they have to do is put the quantity just by a scan. And so that's the beauty of what we're developing. And we want to continue that with curated relationships with, we even send them a shopping list every night of what they're upside down on so that there's no failure in terms of running out of product. So they're going to get a shopping list every night of what they need to reorder. If they choose to wait to get some economies again in their purchase, to bulk purchase, those are business analytics they can run for themselves. We're even moving into predictive analytics with future occupancy and telling them the type of product they need at what quantity. So that's going to roll out.
That was going to be my next question as to how does that roll into, because again, found money is money on the table, right?
Yep, it is.
The other key component is time and efficiency, right? All key components of efficient logistics. So it's all the logistics play.
Yes. It's nice to know too. Where does your product go? What happened to it? What kind of order threshold am I on? Well, how come in this sector I'm going through twice as many shampoos? These are the granular business metrics that just weren't available, and certainly weren't available to me in my past life. So for me to have analytic control and measure to manage, and also understanding how we can bill for every $7 item, it's a world of difference. And really, I think something I'm very proud of in order to put forward with my team. And I think I don't know of anyone else, and I'm not comparing other than saying my ignorance. I don't know of anybody else doing it at quite that sophisticated level. And we're going to keep pushing it where there's so much more room for us to develop that, and including where AI will come into it.
Great.
And
If our listeners want to learn more about and find out more about EZcare, or get a demo and see what we're doing, how's the best way for them to go ahead and get a hold of you?
Sure. You can, I would just text or email me, directly, Brian with an I at EZcare.io. It's .io. So it's Brian at EZ and the word care, all one word, .io. And or go to EZcare.io and check us out on the web.
Yeah.
But I'd be more than happy to show them through that. I think there's a lot more, and it's not tip of the iceberg, but it's still pretty high up. There's a lot under the water. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And we'll go ahead and put a link so for those that want to go ahead and just obviously get directly to your website and or email you directly. the show notes and on the website. With AI being the big buzzword of 2024, how do you see that affecting property care and operations? We talked a little bit about some machine learning stuff and stuff like that, but how do you see this saving property managers and clients even more time in the future?
Oh boy, that's a big question with a big answer, I think. But so for me, there's a couple of things I break down on the high level, and then I'll get into operations. But it's operational automation, right? So as a header, we could talk about that. Dynamic pricing and market analytics, right? Huge. You guys know this.
Yep.
Just having the algorithms do a lot of the heavy lift for you and just bing, present an answer for you is going to be amazing. And then personalization, right? At scale. Getting really deep into the persona of the buyer and understanding their tailored needs and curate them on a very high concierge level will become far easier to do as those profiles are built via AI within who your guests are, where they're coming from, what they do, what their preferences are, all the stuff we can imagine. Circling back to operations, though, for me is there's a lot of stuff we can do now that there's so many variables, it has to be done by a person right now. But AI is going to obviously, and ubiquitous as it will be, going to be able to affect operations. So being able to dump a bunch of variables into the soup bowl and cook it. One of the things is scheduling. Right. So scheduling right now for the optimum schedule, both in terms of distance or many variables, personnel availability, personnel type, their ratings, their rankings, capability, distance, speed, specificity of what they do.
Mhm.
This is all going to come in and play for cleaners and maintenance personnel being able to automatically be doled out to the right person at the right time for the right fix in the right way. And that's
Back to
something that
logistics,
It's,
right?
that's what I was going to say. It's like an automated dispatch, right? But it's not necessarily reactive. It's proactive, right? It's a proactive dispatch system that's been automated.
That's right. It's going to save time. It's going to save cost. It's going to increase guest satisfaction. That could be said. Cost, time, and satisfaction is going to be the layer on top of. That's the outcome of AI, regardless of the specifics of what you talk about AI. It's really about time, money, and guest satisfaction. If you were to put that on the wall and put AI above it, that's what I think it is.
Yep.
Brian, this has been awesome. I'm so glad you're able to join us today. We tried to do this a little bit earlier, maybe about a month ago, and something came up. I wasn't able to go ahead and do it. So I'm glad we were able to go ahead and get this rescheduled. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You are so welcome. Thank you guys for
absolutely. You have a great backstory, and you've been around the block, and people want to hear your story. So we're glad we're able to go ahead and share it.
I hope they're willing and able to hear my story without falling asleep. But I think it's a good background. I've been on both sides of the fence now. It's a really fun industry.
Well, awesome. All you listening, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to our podcast, follow, click, smash whatever you do on Instagram.
Notifications if you're on YouTube.
Do all that stuff. Thank you so much for joining us, Brian. And until next time.
We'll have to have you back on sometime soon and catch up and see what.
That would be great. Both of you.
Is pushing for you.
Great to see you again, Matteo. And thank you, John. I so appreciate it.
Absolutely.